Beckham's history is we got him when he was a puppy. We did get him from a pet store. And as soon as we brought him home, he was, this sweet little puppy. And then as the days went on, we took him outside. We saw this aggressive side to him. So he always got startled with moving objects, runners, bikers, cars, you name it. He would run towards it. So one day I was out in the yard washing my car. I had him on a metal stake, and a runner ran past our house. Next thing I know, he breaks free from the metal stake and goes and bites the runner. So that was the very first issue that we had. And after that, I think it was the following week, one of our neighbor girls was riding her bike down the street, right in front of our house, same thing. He ran out of our yard and nipped her. So after that, it's time for an electric fence. So we got the electric fence, goes from the backyard, he can stay in the back and go all the way up to the front.
It's impossible for us to do anything back there.
Right.
If we have family over for a cookout, it's like you are the one or someone's to go, you're on dog duty, go
Right.
chase after him.
So we will all be
out.
in the backyard with our other dog, Harley, sitting out there. Beckham has to be in the front because he has to know what's going on at all times. So, and luckily he's not broken free out of the electric fence, so he knows his boundaries. But one day I'm afraid that he will break through. Something's going to get him to go past that. He has a lot of anxiety as well. He always has to be in the thick of things, knows what's going on. He has a leather chair up in our front room that he sits and perches on all day long to watch people go by, barks at everything, dogs, people, whatever.
It's become his chair.
Yes. But he also has a good side to him. So he has a tennis ball that he loves to play with. He'll bring it to us, we'll throw it, he brings it back to us, puts it on the ground, and he'll roll it with his nose, like, all right, do it again, Mom. So he has that sweet side to him, and if I'm in bed sick, he will lay with me all day. He's a cuddler at home. He sits on our lap. So he's a great dog, but it's just once you get him outside, we're not sure what he's going to do or what he's going to react to. It's just a few weeks ago, I had him off leash, which I never do. It was just a moment, took him across the street to play with his two little buddies. And next thing I know, he ran across the street at a guy that was just walking down the street, minding his own business, ran up and bit his calf. No reason, didn't even have a dog. So it's just, I don't know what provokes him. And I want him to get trained so I can have a dog that I could take places and that I'm not fearful that he's going to bite you.
It's hard to enjoy, especially when we have Harley. If we want to walk Harley, you take him on a walk and you feel relaxed, and then you have him, and it's just like, you can't relax. You have to think one step ahead of him every way because you don't know what he's going to do.
And a lot of people think, oh, the big dog's going to bite me, but our lab just wants cuddles and kisses, and it's the little one that's going to be like, I'm going to bite you. It has impacted me, just like I said, I'm fearful of taking walks with him, and it's the unpredictability of not knowing what he's going to do. And we got a dog that we want to be able to take places, take on walks, and intermingle with other dogs, but it's just we don't have that because he's so unpredictable. My son Jacob picked him out of the litter at the pet store. So the last couple times Jacob's getting ready to be picked up for soccer or school or whatnot, and he's getting ready to walk out the door, and Beckham just goes crazy barking, like a vicious bark. He did that like the beginning of the week, and then Jacob just said the other day that he actually nipped at his calf when he was getting ready to walk out the door. Makes no sense. And then about a month ago, I was taking Jacob back to his dad's house. Beckham is on Jacob's lap. I'm driving, drop Jacob off at his dad's house. He gets out of the car. Beckham jumps on my lap. Jacob walks around the car to say goodbye to me, and Beckham wants to bite his face off. I'm like, dude, you were just sitting on his lap. So that's what I don't know if he gets scared, startled. I don't understand that.
Yeah, you'll switch on a person without any reason.
Yeah, so
it makes no sense at all.
No sense whatsoever. I'm looking to get out of this training, to have a dog that will be able to go on walks, that I'm able to control on walks, and not be scared every time I turn the corner that we're having an encounter with another dog or a person that he wants to like go after. And I just want to be able to do things with him as a dog owner, take him to the dog parks and not be fearful, take him to dog events on the Medina Square and have him be able just to walk around and enjoy the other dogs, the other people, the environment. But right now it's just so unpredictable. So I want a trained dog that will listen and not be so unpredictable.
There he is.
Mark is good.
There it is. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. David, nice to meet you.
You too.
So this is our little friend here.
Yes.
All right. So we'll let him kind of settle down for a minute here. So you're a little terror, buddy.
Did you get my videos?
Yeah, I did get them. I appreciate that. I'll forward those to you guys here.
He probably.
All right. So is this pretty common when people come over then?
Yes.
Some of this kind
But
of
usually I have to hold him.
Usually you're holding him?
I'm usually holding him.
Okay.
Not on
Gotcha.
leash.
All right. Well, why don't you take him, walk on over that way with him, and then we'll kind of, we'll take a look at things in a minute there. Right. So what's your routine typically when you have people come over? You said you hold them typically?
Yeah, until he kind of like warms up.
Yeah.
And then I'll let him down. And then if our guests like go in the basement or go upstairs, like if they have one of their friends over and they reappear.
It's kind of the same production
Same
again.
production. Like I forget, I saw you 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
so it's
sure.
the same thing. Pick him up, let him calm down.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. And do you find that he reacts more when you're holding him versus when he's on the ground?
When I'm holding him, he like tries to jump out of my, Even on walks, if I have to pick him up, if we encounter certain situations and I pick him up, he will scratch the daylights out of me and try to jump out.
Sure. We see that a lot with dogs like this is the more restraint that we add, typically the more intense their behavior is.
Okay.
You know, most of these behaviors in general, like if you were to look at like aggressive behaviors or a dog barking at another dog out on the walk or whatever it may be, if you really back chained it and chased it all the way back to like where it kind of originated, a lot of it starts at we're typically holding the dog back from something, or something I should say is holding the dog back from getting to something. So that something could be a window, that something could be a door, that something could be a leash, that something could be us holding them, you know?
Right.
And typically as they start reacting, it's like when we start holding them back, it makes you want to get to that thing like 10 times more intensely.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's kind of a catch-22 because in a lot of cases, we need to hold them back to some extent, right? Because if we weren't to do that, we would be having him biting other dogs all the time. We would be having him biting people. We'd have all sorts of situations like that, right? But the more we hold them back, the more intense they do it as well.
Like this.
Right? But the issue is a lot of times, like when you start addressing it with one dog, I would say, in the end of the day, it's, you know, the dog should be able to distinguish the rules, right? Like if we set boundaries of no barking with him, regardless of what the other dog is doing, it should still stay the same, right? The problem typically lies with, though, that is a distraction to him. So he should still be able to do it, but it's going to make it harder for him to do it. And I'm all about setting the dogs up for success and trying to make things as easy as possible, you know?
And he gets jealous when this one is, when he thinks he's going somewhere and he's not.
All right. I'll take that leash from you there. Thank you very much.
Hold him back if you want.
No, that's all right. I'm just going to kind of keep him with me here and see if just me having him on a leash kind of reduces some of that barking as he realizes that I'm in control in this situation. That's a lot of this, right? Dogs that are not in a position of being under control by somebody assume that control themselves, right? So in his case, right, he's barking at me, he's wandering around, he knows he can get around, we're not giving him any sort of direction. So because of that, he's like, who's this person? I need to see who this person is. I need to see if this person's okay or not, right? Where now that I have him on a leash, even something as simple as, it's just not a flat collar, there's no training equipment or anything, but me being able to tell him, I need you to stay here right now with me, slip out of it.
Oh, okay, or not.
Hang on, buddy.
tighten that up.
Yeah, well, typically speaking, we wouldn't use a flat collar for this, but that's okay. But me being able to let him know, I don't want you to go this way, I don't want you to go this way, I need you to stay with me right now, immediately starts to shift that state of mind, right? And in a second here, I'll do the same thing with him and kind of see what we get with that. So that's kind of what our training philosophy is built around, is being able to give dogs direction in these types of situations so that we're more proactive about stuff and it doesn't amp up as quickly, you know? Like that kind of explosion of energy. Oh my God, there's somebody at the front door, we need to check it out.
Yeah, Amazon delivery.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It turns into anything. It's somebody walking past, an Amazon delivery, the jingle of a dog's collar going down the street, right? All those types of things. But by being able to give direction in those situations, we immediately are able to get them focused back in on us. And I always say it's kind of like a 50-50 rule. If we get 50% of their brain focused on some sort of task to take 50% of their brain off of whatever's going on over there, which makes them settle down much quicker, right? And you see, just putting him on a leash, that is our ability to control him, which settled the arousal down like almost immediately, right? So like I said, we don't need to do a ton of training with him, but we probably will show you how to kind of stop some of those.
But if we have company come over, we can just get the leash and put that on and do the same.
Yeah, the leash is probably not going to be a long-term fix. This won't work as well with you. The only reason is because he's like, oh my God, like this is a new guy, now he's giving me direction, right? It's got a little bit more value because I'm somebody new.
Because you're someone new.
But we may wind up getting him fitted up with an e-collar or something just to stop the barking. So, okay, cool. Well, let's do this. Let's walk over this way for a minute here.
Okay.
Come on, buddy. Just lay him.
Oh, he just went and bit him.
You missed it.
Did he get you?
Yeah, I'm fine, obviously. He just got my pants. You missed the angle. No, I'm just kidding. All right, why don't you bring him on over this way?
Oh my goodness.
Well, this is why we're here, right? So we're going to sit down here for a minute. I'll have you just kind of keep him over there, obviously. And I just want to kind of re-go over some of the situations that we talked about over the phone as far as some of his biting incidents. So is a lot of it things like that, like what we just saw right there?
He did that a couple weeks ago with my son.
Yes.
Bit the back of his cap when he was exiting out, leaving the house.
Sure.
He did that.
Yep.
Now, last month, we were across the street visiting some of his dog friends, and he was off leash, and he saw a guy walking down the street, looked up, saw the guy hauled ass right across the street and bit him.
Yep.
Right in the calf.
Yeah.
Didn't even have a dog.
He goes for the legs, I see.
He does. He does. So you're about the 8th person that he's done that to.
Yeah. And it was fairly firm, but it didn't feel like he was full on committedly trying to just like attack necessarily. But that a lot of times when we see those types of things, it's just this fear response. I just need to try to, it's like a herding instinct that these dogs kind of get sometimes when they're fearful of things, right? They want to go over and try to control it, right? And that's like we were just talking about a minute ago. A lot of this boils back down to just control, right? Like dogs, because they're pack creatures, they always have this kind of perception of somebody needs to be in charge of things, right? And I don't get super, super into the weeds when it comes to like, you need to be the alpha and you need to be the pack leader and all of that kind of stuff, because I think those words and those phrases carry a lot of like sometimes negative emotion behind them, right? But there is a truth to like dogs have a social hierarchy, right? With each other, right? You'll notice in their relationships with each other that certain ones will be a little bit more dominant or submissive than others, right? Even in my household now with 4 dogs, they all have a very different relationship with each other, right? Or with people, right? Dogs can kind of develop that pack hierarchy with people as well. And ultimately, I always say, when it comes to dogs, they can have their structure with each other, but it's ultimately up to us to be kind of at the top of that list. Obviously, big goals. Obviously, we want to make him safer. We want to have better control over him. And you want to be able to take him to a lot of different places with you and just feel a little bit more confident that
and be able to have people over and not have to hold them or worry about them. It's amazing. I go to some houses and, the dogs just like sniff you and then they just ignore you.
Go off and do their own
Not
thing.
here.
Not
here.
So a lot of that initially, I always try to, when we're dealing with dogs that are having aggression issues, I try to set as realistic of expectations as possible with these things, right? So, and I think we talked a little bit about this over the phone, but anytime you're dealing with a dog that is having aggression issues, right? No amount of training you're going to do is going to take that inherent want to bite and just throw it out the window and make it completely disappear, right? But as you can understand your dog better, and as you can understand the psychology behind why they're doing some of these things, like some of the things we talked about of the control and the restraint and how these behaviors can amp up with like,
and make it worse.
You know, perfect recipe of all of those different types of things. And you tack on the training that we're going to be teaching him. What happens is you learn how to manage this really, really well, where you begin to raise the dog's threshold over time to this type of stuff. We're going to be creating that blueprint of this is how we got from point A to point B. This is how we got him to a place where he really understood what was expected of him, so you could then replicate that blueprint at home, right? And even though we'll have him at a place where he'll be able to interact with our staff and interact in new environments and stuff like that in an appropriate way, you're going to have to take a couple steps back and you're going to have to rebuild that relationship with him, right? Because in addition to just doing the training for the dog, a lot of this, as you know, is training for you guys, right?
Absolutely.
And it's relationship adjustment work, right? We need to get him to respect you guys in the same way that he respects us, right? And that comes through clearly outlined rules that we'll kind of give you when he goes home, and setting appropriate structure, right? This is how you have guests come over. This is how you take them for walks. If you're going to have them in the yard, this is how you go about doing that. And it doesn't require like hours of training every week or anything like that. All it requires, excuse me, all it requires is just setting those structures of the things you're already doing and how you should be doing them.
That makes sense.
Anxiety in itself can display itself in a lot of different ways, you know? So like a lot of times we think of anxiety as like this inherent negative if the dog is really stressed out or scared of something, right? But anxiety can also display itself, like for example, my Belgian Malinois is a very high energy, high drive dog, and when we're getting ready to go do something that he's amped about, he gets anxious.
That's
you know what I mean?
exactly what he does.
And it's an excitable anxious for him, but it's still, I would say, an unhealthy state of mind overall for a dog to be in. So in his case, if you're seeing those spikes, like a lot of times we'll see with a dog like him, that you'll see these spikes of arousal where he goes from really, really amped up and excited or anxiously excited to really, really, really anxiously fearful, where you'll see those aggressive responses come out of him, right? And our goal overall is to essentially make the exciting things, or the exciting anxious things, a little less exciting, and those scary things a little bit less scary, so they don't have these like freak out spikes where you'll see the things like the lunging and the biting and stuff.
That's what he does.
So, all right, so I'm just gonna walk around here real quick, see what he does. You see eyeballing it. So you can definitely tell it doesn't take a lot to trigger him. Right, I'm gonna have you get up for a second here. Still hold his leash fairly short there. And hold it short, but give me the handle. So give me the opposite end of it.
Hey David, I'm gonna run behind you.
Yeah, go for it. And then I'll have you keep on holding that. And then in a minute here, what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you actually let go of him, and then I'll take control over the leash at that point. We'll see what we get. I'll let you know when to do it though. So why don't you walk a little bit out. And I'm gonna stand right about here. And you can stop right there. You don't have to keep walking around. And I'm just gonna hang out here until he starts to kind of just chill out and get used to me being in his space. Then I'll take control of the leash there. You let go. And notice immediately, as soon as I take control of that leash, now he wants nothing to do with it. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to try something in a minute here, because it's a very realistic possibility, but you start to get into that guarding instinct that they have, where their objective with all of this is to keep me away, right? So as soon as we get into a position like this, where it's like, oh my God, now it's like kind of face to face, like pulling away those barriers here, a lot of times we see a totally different shift in their state of mind because
I've noticed that with dogs.
Yes.
He could bark, we're across the street, he sees a dog, bark, 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 and if we get closer, he'll stop. Because he's like, oh.
So I'm just going to hang out here for a minute. Again, I'm still holding this leash pretty short because I'm still expecting him to try something in a minute. And if he were, 1, a little bit bigger of a dog, 2, had a history of doing more damage with some of these bites, or 3, I didn't get a vibe that he was just really scared ultimately, we would be doing this on muzzle, obviously.
Okay.
Right? But right now, because of kind of what we're seeing right now, I'm not as concerned about it.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And you see, he doesn't even want to walk.
No.
You know? Hey.
Wow.
So we'll give him a minute here. Now, next step here, I try to take my time with all these steps as much as I can. So next step here is we're just going to hang out. I want to get him used to, again, just like with him, I have control over the leash right now, right?
Okay.
And see again, over the course of this next minute or so, as I stop and start moving, if that sets him off at all. Come on. Now, even when you'll notice he's putting the brakes on over here a little bit, I'm still moving him through that. Right? So that's another little bit of him trying to gain that control back, is can I put the brakes on? Can I try to resist this and get little wins in my mind, you know? And again, they're coming from this fearful state, but as he gets those little wins in his head, it starts to give him a little bit more of a sense of that confidence again, which starts to make them more likely to start rehearsing those behaviors again. So when I see something like that, where he's putting the brakes on, he's like, no, I don't want to walk. That's a clear signal to me. If I need to establish leadership, I need to keep moving.
Keep going.
To get him to keep coming with me. Right? And as I start to trust him a little bit more with this, I'll start loosening up on the leash little by little.
Okay.
Very good. Sit. Okay. Come on. Sit. Okay. Now I'm still not going to try to pet or anything in this situation, because even though he's doing better with just me moving around in his space, he's still not comfortable with me, right? Okay.
He can turn in a second.
It could switch in a second, right? So you got to kind of take it baby steps here. Very good. All right, sit. Looks pretty good. So you said typically stuff like this would be a big trigger for him, right? So you get back into, again, the underlying concept of a lot of this is overall control of the dog, right? Once we establish control over the dog, we start to get them focused in on those and off of those other things. And that's because you'll notice I'm not doing anything crazy, but as I'm walking, if he starts going, hey, I'm giving a little correction for that. I'm letting him know, I don't want you to do that. Try something else. I don't want you to do that. Try something else, right? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take him for a quick little stroll here right now. And I wanna see how he does with passing some of the things that would have normally been triggers for him. Now again, this is where you get back to, it's not so much training the dog that's the issue, right? It's training the owner. It's getting you to understand how to embody this same sense with him.
When
you know
we
what I mean?
encounter certain situations.
Or just overall in general, right? So in general, before we encounter some of these situations, I want to establish control over the dog. And again, I understand a lot of this is easier said than done. A lot of this is holding value because I'm somebody new, right? But as we establish better communication, it will make it easier for you to do.
And you're not saying anything, you're just...
Not right now, because words are so irrelevant with a lot of this kind of stuff. You can do a lot of training just by understanding what dogs inherently know, right? Which is when we like what they're doing or when we don't like what they're doing, right? So I can convey that message without ever saying anything, technically speaking, right? Now we add in verbal commands and we add in verbal markers and stuff like that to make it easier for us to understand. But if you look at the psychology of the dog, that's all they're looking for, is they're looking to perceive if we like something or don't like something. There's not really an in-between. You know, a lot of people, they'll try to do like, whatever, they'll try to do, you know, telling them it's okay or to reassure them. And we try to kind of console them like we would a child when they just don't understand that, you know? Come on. most fearful dogs, they don't want to be in this position where they have to make these decisions, right? He doesn't want to have to assume that role of deciding if your guest is okay, and when they're not okay, being that authority figure that needs to let them know that, right? So when we take away that responsibility, it reduces so much of that pressure.
You can just kind of be a dog and relax.
One of the best ways I used to explain it is if you look at like a company and you look at, you know, the CEO of a large corporation and then somebody that's working in just a basic position in it, when each one of those people goes home, who do you think's more stressed out? Right? It depends. Obviously, there's different variables, but for the most part, a lot of these people, right, they don't have to worry about it once they get home. What's going on within those walls,
right.
You know? Where it's the same deal with dogs, right? You just got to live your life and you got to do your thing, and we'll make all these hard decisions for you.
So, how do you explain where some dogs he will go up to and not bark and just sniff, and other dogs he just will bark his head off?
Because he's deciding, right? Like, it's no different than people, you know? Like, you don't necessarily not like everybody that you meet, right? Dogs are kind of the same way. So the problem is just, though, that it's a decision for him, right? He is deciding if it's okay or if it's not okay. Yeah, any questions?
So will he be working with other dogs too, or just other?
Yeah. So we're going to be covering, I kind of try to cover all of the foundations of everything. So that's going to be socialization with other dogs, different public access work, so getting him to a handful of different places, obviously teaching all of his foundational commands and stuff so you could start utilizing those things. And then we do some handling related stuff, so getting them used to being kind of physically manipulated in different ways. So we do a lot of those types of things. So, but like I said, we'll get them all tuned up for you.
I know he's
get
in
right
good
to
hands.
work, you know, and see what we can kind of get done with him. So, see if we can get this naughty dude a little bit more behaved for you.
I know, that's the goal.
Yeah.
To be able to enjoy walks and enjoy being a dog owner, not being so stressful and
well, you know,
out and about.
Anytime you're running the risk of your dog potentially becoming a liability with bites and stuff like that, that creates a lot of
like last
stress.
month was it. I'm like, we cannot have that. I mean, I've got lucky so far with no one reporting it.
Yeah, sure.
But it just takes that one.
Just takes that one time.
It does.
So, cool. Well, what we'll do here is we will we'll get all this stuff loaded up. And we'll kind of get cruising with things and go from there. So,
Give Mama kisses.
Enjoy that hold while you can. It's the last one.
So messy. Mama's sad, but you're in good hands, and you're going to be back a better dog. Huh?